My name is Nelson Bogart Skinner. I was born on the 17th of February, 1927, in my home at 42 Fayette Street, Waterloo, New York, the home of Memorial Day. My father was a miller. During Depression, we moved to Baldwinsville outside of Syracuse, New York, and he was a miller. He went to the head miller of the Semolina mill. Semolina flour makes spaghetti and macaroni. It was the only mill east of the Mississippi. We moved there in 1938, and he died 6 days before Christmas, 1939.
Brothers and sisters? Do you have a brother or sisters?
I had one brother, and he's been dead 6 years. And he was 10 years younger than I am.
Thank you for coming. This is an exciting project, very exciting. And the main point of this project is to collect all the memories, including an interview and all other artifacts that each Korean war veteran might have, and make it alive, and giving a light and a life back to those, so that we can store this permanently and for the future generations, right? And thank you for coming in for an interview.
Thank you.
Where did you hear about this project? Why do you think it's important, and why did you decide to participate in it?
Norman called me, and then I received the newsletter from the Korean Veterans Association, and talked about the pastor here and the church. I said, oh, interesting. And then Norman called. I said, I was a sergeant of artillery. I didn't do much except do my job. And I became an Anglican priest in 1962. I retired from the Army in 1968. 20 years of field artillery, 4 years of chaplain. But I went to Korea. I was in 5th Corps Artillery Headquarters. And I was in the war room before, so I knew what division had to go when the Korean War opened up. And I knew where I was going. And I went to the 2nd Division in Fort Lewis. I was assigned to A Battery, a 37 Field Artillery Battalion. And they weren't quite sure what to do with me. I was the Operations Sergeant Major of 5th Corps Artillery. And 5th Corps was the only tactical Army corps in the United States Army. The rest were here and there. And I knew I worked in all the war plans and things in the war room, and I don't say much about it. But so I got to Fort Lewis, Washington.
But why do you think that this project is important?
The important.
I'm going to ask you about your specialty.
The important is important because people have misconceptions about the Korean War. And they have, with all due respect to the Marine Corps, they think that's the only thing that was there. The 2nd Division is still in Korea. It'll always be, because the North Koreans and the Chinese hate them. We've lost 3,000 2nd Division people killed since 1953, come across the border. And it's important to realize that we're there, and now we're back away from the KMZ, and the Korean Army is there, and nobody wants to mess with the Korean Army. They're tough, they're well trained. I had Korean soldiers under my command, 2 squads of them, when I went there. And they were not trained, but they became trained. And they are now. And it's very important that people know that nobody wants to go across that stupid DMZ to try to play games. No more. Because Korea is one of the greatest nations going, and people don't realize this. And all these stupid stories in the newspaper, they don't know. The weather, you see the weather on television, radio, newspaper, then you go outdoors and see what happened. And there's so many people over here. I'm embarrassed when I talk to people like you, because they're so polite to me, and I just did my job. Somebody haul help, and that's what we're here, to help each other, no matter who you are, what you are.
So what do you think that was the most sort of point where that people has misconception about Korean War? Do you think that?
Well, we came back from Korea. I was about 11 months in the hospital after I was wounded. Korea, where's that? I've taught history, I'm a professor, but I read history all my life. Huh? I said, don't you know anything about Korea? No. And I say, you know, I say, shame on you. I'm sorry, I do. And I'm tired of people having misconceptions about what the Korean people. They have no idea.
What was your perception of Korea? What was your level of knowledge of Korea when
Not much.
When you decide to go to Korea?
I didn't have any choice.
Right.
But I knew I was going, and so fine. I'm a soldier. I've been in the Army since '44. I was in the Philippines in World War II.
Oh.
So
You are World War II veterans too.
Oh, yeah.
Did you enlist or
Oh, yes.
you drafted?
While I was in high school, I was 17 years old, went down and enlisted. They said, you just turned 17. I said, yes, I'm going to enlist in the Army Specialized Training Program. All Safe Till Peace, ASTP. And they sent me to Princeton University. And then I went home for 2 months. I didn't understand until 5 years ago that 1944, they dropped that program and made everybody go to the infantry. Fortunately, I went to Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
To get the basic training?
To artillery training.
Artillery training.
As
so your specialty in the
20 years field artillery. And went there and went to the Philippines in the engineer regiment as a surveyor in 1945. My mother was not too well, so I re-enlisted in the Red Apple Bill. He went back to the States. And I became a regular Army private first class the 31st of October. I've been a private since May '44. That was a good jump. Came back to the States, went to field artillery, went on terminal leave, came back to Baldwinsville working. I'm going back in the Army. I like it. Went back to field artillery, Army Ground Force Corps training, went down on a big, two units, one went south, one north, to explain about the military. I like that. I re-enlisted again, went to 5th Corps headquarters, and worked in the war room. 18 full colonels, General Gavin, 4 brigadier generals, the Corps commander, a master sergeant, and a clerk and myself. And it was involved in all the plans going on. So I knew what troops were where.
So what was your reaction when you first heard about the breakout of Korean War? And what made you to decide to enlist yourself? And what was the reaction?
In the beginning?
In the beginning.
Well, in the beginning, because World War II was on in the beginning. That's why I wanted to go in to help. My ancestor was in the Army. He was 14 years old, a drummer in the Revolutionary War.
Okay.
And my aunt was a nurse in World War II. So that's what we do.
So there was no doubt that you were going to go to Korea to help and participate.
Oh no! When they, I couldn't believe that the people would do something like this. But we knew something about Russia, and weren't too happy about that in China. But I was involved in some things, so let's go. You know, somebody needs some help, you go help them. You don't worry about if they're tall, short, yellow, black, pink, blue, cross-eyed. You help your neighbor. I grew up with an ethic that your handshake is your word, and you don't need paperwork. You help your neighbor, and they help you. You have tomatoes, I have peas. You need peas, I need tomatoes. We swap. We help each other always. And I've been a Christian all my life, and that's what we do. Our Lord said this. So I was confirmed in 1950. I was given a mission of the Good Shepherd. And I knew if I was going to be something, a shepherd. And that's what we're supposed to be, all of us, no matter if we're clergy, lay people, or who. Shepherds, because they're all sheep and shepherds. So we go and help.
So your family have had any doubt that you should go and help those?
Oh, no.
What was the overall reaction? Can you describe about the American publics, about their perception going to the war? You don't know what will happen.
No.
You may sacrifice yourself.
Many people didn't know anything about Korea, where it was. I knew, but I didn't know that much about it. I knew geographically, but we didn't know. And then I realized that Japan had been running Korea for years, and they were very efficient in putting the rail lines in. Of course, they didn't lay any track, but they had all the timetables. I couldn't believe that. And so it was no problem. And when we arrived there at Pusan, now called Busan.
Did you arrive at Pusan?
Oh, yeah, in August 1950. And the Naktong, the second division arrived, which was, we only had 2 infantry battalions in a regiment because of the universal military training program that the president had decided to have, which was too bad. And people didn't know. They weren't trained, they weren't tough, but there were some who were tough. And that was the second division, 82nd, but they would have to go to Europe. The Armored Division was in Texas. They're not going to go, so the second division had to go. And I knew I would go there. And artillery didn't know what they're going to do with me. I was Operations Sergeant Major as 23-year-old staff sergeant. There weren't any sergeants major in the Army, but that was a job. I said, General Kiefer, there's a master sergeant over there. He's a clerk. You're doing the job. So I got out in the battery and didn't know what to do with me. So I ran the Fire Direction Center. I was a forward observer, had my own Jeep and team, driver, and a CIC officer from Korean Army. There were 2 of them, Chai-song, who was from North Korea. Grandfather was a Baptist minister. They got out. Pak Pil-soo, whose father was a surgeon, and they were the CIC officers. And we had one sergeant of the Korean Army, but he wasn't very good, so I said, you're a private. And took care of them.
These 2 officers were able to talk in English?
Oh, the 2 CIC officers?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, oh, yeah.
Okay.
That's why they're there. They're a counterintelligence corps.
Right.
Oh, yeah. The Korean soldiers received one-fourth of a cent a month pay. And so we gave them Coke ration and things like that. And they didn't call me sergeant, they called me Skinner Sargi. That was the best they got. And when the fire started and burned everything up, my sleeping bag, everything went. That was a church. They took their just blanket, much sleeping bag, just blankets, and they washed 3 of them up and put them together so Skinner Sargi wouldn't get cold. It was all right for them to get cold. And I did not realize until 5 years ago that 1950-51 was the coldest winter in Korea in 100 years. We had no idea, and we weren't equipped for that. I was equipped pretty well in 2nd Division.
So it was, I think, a little less than 2 months that you were arriving at Pusan. And could you describe what you saw there at the time? I mean, what was like? I mean, around the Nakdong River, there was the front line that between North Korea.
There was no line. They kept in and out all the time, and the Naktong River was it. And
how devastated everything around that region was? Could you just give me
It was bad. Poor people, I felt so sorry for them. They had nothing. They were getting killed by people. Our troops were not trained. They didn't have equipment, 2.3 bazookas, which were worthless against the tanks. And the howitzers we had were old ones. They were straight tubes, no bells on to make them better. But we used them, and we had old ammunition. But we had a good battery commander and a good battalion commander, Lieutenant Colonel John Hector, and a regimental combat teamer was Colonel Paul Freeman, who was top of the line. He took the regiment over. He made commander a month before we went. And he'd already told his troops, get past, we're all going. Nobody stayed home. They came. The whole regiment came. And that's different. You say, well, didn't they stay home? They were afraid to go? No, we went. It was the fight. And no matter what, we fight. So at the Naktong, one time, we were laid out, the guns were back, and I was back in the fire direction center, and on the hill, put the aiming stakes out so he could adjust. A soldier was lying down, and the first sergeant was older, and he went up. Man was asleep because we just ate and worked and slept if we could. Another time we were in position, guns were laid out, and there was a little hill in front of them, and we could see our troops up there. Infantry platoon came up, and Captain Fulton said, "Hey, Lieutenant, let's not have any firefight with him." He said, "We're the frontline troops." That was the Koreans, North Koreans. That wasn't us. March order. We got right out of there. But there were no maps. We were in a very fluid situation, and we did the best we could. And then later on, when it went back and forth across the Naktong, our battery was the one firing. And I took the radio at the fire direction center. You're the liaison officer, the 4 observers I couldn't talk to even, couldn't get to them. He only had one eye. Back and forth, fire direction. We were putting the rounds, firing 50 foot in front of the line. A 105 howitzer, when it hits, the range is 150 yards. It'll kill you. And we fired and fired, and it was not much left of the regiment, and it was a North Korean division against them.
How well they were equipped with North Korean divisions compared to the South Koreans who didn't?
Well, South Koreans had nothing.
Right.
They really didn't. And they finally, some of the divisions started getting by October of 1950, they were getting better trained and things like this, an influx. And they had good officers. Fine officers trained. Some of them were not, but we had American officers who weren't so good either. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make a difference. Later on, I was given a direct commission called Mustangs, Reserve Officer Training Corps, West Pointers, Officer Candidate School, direct commissions. It's not how you receive the rank, it's the kind of person inside. And our artillery people were great, and the infantry were tremendous. And infantry regiments, they don't have artillery regiments, they have regiments now. It was a team, the regimental combat team, battalion of artillery, infantry regiment, tank company, engineers, and it was just a team, and 3 regimental combat teams in a division. But that's how you fought as a team. And the infantry was close with us, we were them. So.
How about North Korean army? Were they well equipped?
Well, when the Chinese, we really saw, I saw more Chinese than I did.
Were Chinese around Naktong River? No.
No. Later on, we're up there, right. Changcheng Valley. Mm-hmm. That's way up by the Yalu. And we captured some Chinese, and we tried to tell them, they're Chinese here. Mm-hmm. And General MacArthur was fine, except he had an intelligence officer who was World War II. I think it was the Civil War. "Oh, no, there aren't any Chinese here." And the Korean general said, "They are." No. He said, "General, I have fought these people. They're wearing North Korean uniforms, sleeping in the villages in the woods in the daytime and coming up. Oh, no." So when General MacArthur asked him, no, there aren't any. So he believed him. "You're 5 stars. I'm a 2-star intelligence general. I've been with you for years. You believe me. Just because I'm stupid doesn't mean anything. You don't know any better." And they make fun of General MacArthur. Wow. the troops home by Christmas. Well, we were up there, the Yalu River. There wasn't anybody there, but they'd been there for 2 months. The Yalu River comes up like this, the China Sea, the Yellow Sea, and our troops are in a line. So over there where the Marines were, they'd been in there. And down to, we were right in a nap. We had China there, North Korea, Manchuria there. The 2nd Division fought every battle in Korea. We have 2 presidential citations from Korea. The rest of the divisions have 1. We have 1 presidential citation.
The former Secretary of State, Henry Kissinger, just released his book on China. And in that book, Mao Zedong decided to engage in Korean War from very early on of this Korean War, so that 250,000 Chinese armies were actually around Yalu River around by the August of 1950. So your witness seems
true.
to tell that
That's what happened. Now we know better because we were able to get into the Russian records and find out that this is Stalin's idea. And but the Chinese over there, and they didn't think much of Koreans, and they wanted to run the whole thing. But we didn't realize that until at Thanksgiving. And when I went to Lieutenant Moss, Walter J. Moss, M-A-A-S-S Jr. He was an 8th grade staff sergeant who'd been in a Navy motor torpedo boat and was hit on the Nakhtong River, wounded. And they gave him a direct commission, and so I went to his team because we needed to consolidate the teams. They were worried that he was going to get killed. Second lieutenants were killed all the time as forward observers because you're up in front. And then the sergeants become lieutenants, and they get killed. And it's okay. I mean, that's what war is. War is hell. Sherman said it's really bad. And, well, we're going to have peace. You're not going to have any peace. Never.
So for how long did you stay in Korea? And could you talk about the battle that actually you are wounded? I think you have a Purple Heart. Yeah. And could you talk about that too?
Surely.
The most severe battle that you participated, and how long did you stay there? From when to when? So
the toughest battle we fought that I was really involved in was at the Nakhtong.
When was that?
I would say the first part of September.
Of 1950?
Yeah, and this division was against the regiment. And our battery could fire, nobody else could hear on the radio. You're on the other end, and somebody else takes your place. You can't hear me. On radios, that's how you do. And I was running the radio. No, I don't want to relief. I'll stay. B battery was next to us. They couldn't hear anything. We took all of their ammo except the 12 rounds. One round to put in the tube, one the other way. When you take the nuts off, long lanyard to blow the tubes. The lieutenant colonel was up, opening up the shell cases. Number 2 man was pushing the rounds in because your arm gets tired putting those rounds in. And we're putting them 50 foot in front of the lines. Tall Paul, Colonel Freeman came down 3 days later. He said, "Who was on the radio?" Sergeant Skinner, "Where's he at?" "He's sleeping, leave him alone." He said, "I owe you people. You saved my regiment." We had 6 105s, which are 4.2 inches firing, that's all. The North Koreans, we got their weapon, their paper, they let it write, let it rank. Writing, everything writes. They said they could not sustain the attack because there were 3 battalions of medium-sized artillery firing at them. 54 155s, we only 6 105s. The ordnance came down about a week later, went up in the tubes, and there was a crack, maybe this long, about that. You could only fire this far. We fired that. You couldn't do that. You go ask Colonel Freeman in the regiment where we were firing at. And I don't know why, but we did that. And that was a real, because we realized how tough it was. Another place we'd gone in, laid up, and we had rifle fire behind us, and the Koreans wore white clothes, looked like civilians. And they finally give up and come towards you. They weren't giving up because they had a weapon strapped to their back. They'd bend over, and the guy behind them would pull the trigger, and you're dead. Now, today in Iraq, the same thing. Well, he doesn't have a weapon. He's okay. No, 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 no. Thou shalt not kill. It doesn't say that. It says thou shalt not kill deliberately, which we call murder. English is a lousy language to learn. Chinese is easier. This is our hand from here down, not this. That's not a wrist. There's no word for wrist in Hebrew. But people don't want to understand. Anyway, go back to the military. And so at the Thanksgiving day, Mo come over and said, okay, my Jeep we're going to use my Jeep because yours is bad. How'd you find out it was bad? And we'll go up. Now I'm going to drop you off with the 4.2s. You tell them the Chinese are all over the place. And they were. They ran.
Where was it?
Mexican Hat, Chongchong Valley, which is, well, you're looking at, the Yalu goes up like this, which they don't understand. And the Chongchong Valley came up on the side, and it was 36 below zero. I didn't know that. We didn't know that. 1950s, I say the fifth coldest winter in Korea in 100 years. And so I went to get them out, but they had, long story, I don't want to go into it, they were bad. And I found these wounded men there, and they left them behind. I get a little upset about that. So I said, I'll get you out. I didn't. My weapon was gone. I'd snapped it going down the hill. There wasn't any stairs. Bang, snapped right over. I'll get you out. What's that sergeant going to get us out? We're wounded. So somebody left a Jeep over there. I went over and had little bumblebees running around me, but they didn't hit me. And got back and put them in there, and there was another hill where the roads were all gone. And I don't know how God pushed us right up there. We had four men in there wounded, and I got them all in and took off. And I wasn't wounded yet, but my legs were frozen from going through the hill, you know. Rocks are just freeze to your body. And dumped them off, and on the way back, he said, here, and there was a V on the hill. 50 caliber machine gun had been sitting there, and it was choked with yellow bodies, North Chinese soldiers, just choked like logs, because the 50 caliber is tough. Quad 50s are really bad. 50 caliber go through 3 people. And you're not murdering anybody, you're defending. I mean, as a priest, I'm not going to defend myself, but if you're there, I'm going to defend you. Or she's there. That's the idea of what our Lord did, same thing. And even then I knew I was somehow going to go in the priesthood. I didn't know that, but I've been told that. So I got him back, and on the way back, got back to the aid station, got out of the Jeep, and the sniper got me in the leg like this. Wow. So I thought I was just, hurt a little bit.
So you got shot, your right.
Right, yeah, come up like this at an angle. So they put me into a clearing station in a MASH. At the MASH, I saw a sergeant I used to play pinochle with at Fort Bragg. I said, what are you doing here? What are you doing? I got shot, get me out of here. A MASH has 50 patients, 40 patients. That morning we had 400. I didn't eat for 3 days, but I had a pancake for breakfast. I was thankful. I got into the 3/4 ton. All at once, for air conditioner, machine gun had gone right above me and below the other guy. We went back to a place called Coonery, and airplane came in and, get sergeants, get over here. He brought the wounded back. They flew us out, and 30 minutes later, the Chinese had the field. So God has his own plan for all of us. While you and I are here now, we didn't know this was going to happen, but he's got a plan. Why? I don't know. And so I've kept close with the 2nd Division and seen them and spent 11 months in the hospital.
11 months in hospital? Yeah. Where?
At Waltham. Army Hospital was closed for World War II, and we were the first ones to reopen it.
Where is it?
Massachusetts, Waltham.
Massachusetts.
Waltham.
Okay. So when was that? That actually
that would be 19. We went to Pyongyang, and then they flew us to Osaka by train to Haneda, flew to Hawaii, to California, to Texas, and then Massachusetts. So it must have been.
Was it 1951?
No, 50.
50.
Oh yeah,
still, yes.
Before Christmas.
So does that battle get you be recognized and Purple Heart with the Purple Heart?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay. Could you talk about that?
Yeah.
How it's been recognized? When did you get the Purple Heart?
Okay, it was funny. I mean, we arrived in Osaka, and I saw a white thatch going down to the Methodist minister, married to an Episcopalian down in. Come here. So I went upstairs, and I had a bed, and this corporal came by with a cardboard box. He said, "Sergeant Skinner, Nelson B, RA 122400407. Yep. He said, "Well, don't get shot." And tossed a Purple Heart in my bed, and that's all I got.
When was it? In late 1950.
Oh yeah, I'd say maybe not quite. Because I arrived at Waltham right before Christmas. We opened up, so it must have been. Oh, they took us back very quickly. They were very good about it. We came up by no helicopters and like MASH. MASH is a good movie. It's funny, but they did a lot, I know. I always worried about the MASH that I went through because the Chinese had it and they killed it. They killed and burned the ambulance behind me, and they killed a lot of people there. They didn't care who they were. They'd rape and kill them. But I was very fortunate. And I spent a year, 11 months there at the hospital, and went to Fort Sill, and went as a sergeant to Officer Candidate School. And my battery commander was now a major, and he said, "You're going to take a commission." I said, I won't say what I told him, but it was so nice. So then he said, the old man said so, and the old man, battalion commander, Colonel Hector, and the old man was Colonel Freeman. When he said, "Yes, you did it." So I was commissioned. I went on active duty as a second lieutenant in July of 1952. And because I spent 11 months in the hospital, I didn't get out of there till October 31, which is interesting. That's the same day I was re-enlisted in the regular army in the Philippines in 1945, October 31st. It's a magic day or something, I don't know. But I've been very close with the Purple Heart people and wounded and 2nd Division ever since. They're still in Korea.
So you never back to
No,
Korea?
I'm a married priest in Anglican, and my wife was pregnant with our youngest child, and General Park.
You were not married when you were dispatched to Korea?
Oh, no, I didn't get married till I was older. I'm a slow learner, doom. I was 37 before I got married. I went with my wife a year and a half. My mother knew about it. I didn't know about it. She said, "You always were a slow learner." And but I was working with the Veterans Administration as an educational, and so I was pregnant. And General Park said, "Come back to Korea," and they gave us a special decoration for the 2nd Division.
Is that the medal that you have?
No, that's just something else. This is the 2nd Infantry Division Korean War Veterans Alliance. I was their chaplain and. For 11 years and
in the United States.
21 years, yeah, 11 years. And so that's the.
Could you show that?
Yeah, the 2nd Division is on, but the headdress. 2nd Division is a Army division commanded by. It's really quite a thing. It's heavy, you know. You put these things on. And they dangle. It'll stop a bullet, maybe, I don't know.
So that was the most severe battle that you remember?
Well, I remember a lot of battles, but I mean, they were not out-and-out battles like this. But that same day, there was an 8-inch howitzer battery. I became a battery commander of 8-inch howitzers as a second lieutenant, which is unusual. They wanted me to go back to Korea. You haven't been? I said, no, I was an officer, but as an enlisted man. Oh. And so then they checked their records and said, no, you can't go back because your physical condition, you're not going to do it. She probably broke the camera, but that's all right.
So what, throughout the whole stay in Korea as a soldier there, what was the most rewarding moments? Most difficult and most happiest. Could you describe
it was not just one time. It was very embarrassing to me because the Korean people were so giving of everything they had. You're here to help, and they would do anything. And it makes you humble to realize that, well, you're here to help us, nobody else is, because Americans came first. Then we had a French battalion with us. They were great in the regiment. And the Greeks came, and the Dutch, the Turks, they were all with the 2nd Division at different times, at different regiments. And so the 2nd was all over the place, but we're still there in the 2nd Division. We've lost 3,000 killed over there since 1953 by the North Koreans coming over. Oh, you don't know that? Well, who else is going to kill them on duty? And so we don't have any 2nd Division at the DMZ now, but these are South Korean soldiers, and they're tough. They're M1A1 tanks, they're real trained. When I come back to Fort Sill, I was a training officer for Korean officers. And
you mentioned that the Koreans were very gracious. I mean, to me, it's too obvious because you came to aid of us, and
yeah, but they were gracious to us.
Yeah, but I mean, can you tell me more about except two Koreans that you talked in the beginning of your interview from the CIC? But were there any other Korean soldiers?
Yeah, the soldiers,
other civilians, and can you?
Well, the soldiers.
Some of the Korean...
We were in a building in a hot air heat, and I went to church, went to mass, and somebody started a fire and burned everything up, including my sleeping bag. My sleeping bag. And so 3 Korean soldiers took their sleeping bags, which were blankets, cleaned them out and put them together so Skinner Sarji would have something to sleep in. And it was cold. They didn't care. They wanted me to be taken care of because I'd give them, you give ration. I don't drink a lot. I don't, You share what you have. If you don't want it, don't throw it away. Give it to someone. And that was very touching to me that these troops would do this. And we went out, and as I say, we had a Korean sergeant come over when he started hollering. I said, "You're no longer a sergeant. You're just one of us." And they stuck when I was not on the Fort Hill, back in the battery. They were right with me. And one time we had to guard troops, and these were Chinese soldiers. And I said, "Don't kill them." Because they were, I said, "Make them come along faster if I want to put a couple rounds on the ground, but don't shoot them." I had to make a report if you do. But even up in North Korea, when we got there, the CIC said, we went up to a house to sleep. He said, "It's better here than out there." And good thing was it was the last sleeping I had for 3 days. And the next day was when they dumped us off with it. And, but it's always been this way. And since then, very embarrassing. I had people, Korean drummers from Syracuse University, use our church. I thought they were singers, but they were the drummers. I said, "Oh, I was..."
The Chunjin?
Huh?
Chunjin, Syracuse University Drum Club, Korean Drum Club?
Yeah, drummers.
Yeah, they are Chunjins.
Yes. Yeah, and I didn't know about, I thought they were the singers because I know about the singers, And so, so they came over. And so I said, I removed the blessed, I said, "No, use the church, it's a building, but I take the Blessed Sacrament out." And they nobody, I said, "Well, I was from Pusan." "You were from Pusan?" And I'm a shepherd, that's all I am. And she was very, well, tears. I said, why? I said, no. And then she said Busan. The first time I heard Busan used instead of Pusan. But I saw a picture not too long ago about Busan. Wow, looks like New York City, not like when I was there. But I always remember them. They were very gracious. The 2nd Division, Korean War Veterans Alliance, the same thing. They've been very gracious. We had dancers and singers and come to our 2nd Division Korean War Veterans Alliance conventions. Always gracious to us, and no, you can't pay, you can't. It really touches you. Sure, we came, but that's what we're supposed to do. Oh, we should be over there, because no. You do this. I'm not too happy about being in Afghanistan and Iraq.
Why is that?
Well, if I went back on duty now, I'd probably be court-martialed in 2 days, because don't worry about this, worry about the stripes on my arm. I'd tell them what to do, somebody wouldn't do it. But, because I don't see the Army today as we used to be. I saw a captain court-martialed, or thrown out of the Army because he couldn't command troops in 1948.
But you think that the Korean War is different from those 2 wars that Americans are fighting right now in Afghanistan and Iraq?
Well, because it really divided. The country was really divided. And that's the only thing I can think of, 2 parts like this. I can't explain otherwise. You don't know, the religions are different, of Muslim, Sunni, and Sufi, and they've been fighting in that area over there for thousands of years. Not going to have much change, no matter who's there to help them.
So you saying that there wasn't the case for the Korean War broke up?
No, it was very determinative. General MacArthur was correct. He wanted to go up there and stop it. But now we've got this, it's still a war there. People forget that. It's not Korean conflict, it's a Korean war. It might sign a piece of paper, but it's still a combat duty. And people forget this. They don't understand it at all. And when somebody dies, oh, Korean conflict. No, it's a war, you dummy. I shouldn't use words like that, but I mean, stupidity is unforgivable.
We are still at technically war.
We are at war. We're still at war.
We haven't replaced the armies.
No, none of, well, let them, they're not fighting themselves. We're fighting with them, and they're fighting with us. A lot of Korean soldiers, when they came over here, you had to be a captain, no higher rank to come over to be trained. We had a Korean colonel come over, reduced to captain, so he could train with his troops. And they were good. At Fort Sill, a true story. You won't like it.
You mentioned about foreign troops from Greece, Turkey, Belgium. Could you describe about your experience working with them?
I didn't.
You didn't?
No, we didn't have it at that time, the beginning. The French troops came. I know, because a friend of mine, we became friends, who wrote this book about the whole thing. And it's great. It's called Youth at War. This is a young fellow when he went in. He was Hispanic. He was 17 years old, probably, as a sergeant in the Nakhtong. He was in for the Medal of Honor, didn't get it. 8th grader, and I'll go on to that. But so he has a Distinguished Service Cross, 2 Silver Stars, 4 Bronze Stars, and 7 Purple Hearts. And he went in as a private, but he retired from the Army as a command sergeant major. He is now a Pentecostal minister, has been that way for 7 years, and we're brothers. He's Eliseo Garcia from Albuquerque. And it's a book that tells about what happened at Chip Yong Ni when the French came in. And we're close. He signed it for me. That's why I signed one for Norman. But I'll get you, if you like a copy, I'll get you a copy, sir, because it's something that you should know about people, what really happened up there. Some of the stories you don't understand. This is a man who was fought. all the battles, and he stayed in.
Where is he now?
He's retired.
Yeah, but where is he?
Well, he lives up in the state of Washington.
Washington?
Yep.
D.C.?
No, state of Washington.
State of Washington.
Yeah.
Okay. We wish that we can have an interview with him too.
You got to go out there because his wife, Peggy's in a wheelchair and she's on dialysis. But if anybody out there, I'll give you a book. I'll get a book for you or somebody.
So, when did you officially discharge from the Korean War, and when did you retire from the military? And what did you do? What was the sort of environment left to you when you were discharged from the military? Could you?
Well, I was given a direct commission, and I became the Assistant Inspector General Army Division, 92nd Training Division. 92nd, which is a training division. And went to chaplain school as an artillery captain.
When was it?
That was 1962. And they weren't quite sure what to do with me, or an infantry officer came from Iran training the Shah's troops because they thought we were both counterintelligence because, well, why would you come here? They really flunked us both out of chaplain school because we didn't go by the book. I said, you go by the book, you'll get killed. So he was a different section of the same thing. No. And so I went on duty as a chaplain in 64. And long story, I won't go to the bad part of that one. Because when I was in the hospital, chief of chaplains came, great big tall. The major said, General, he said, Major, I'm not a general, I'm a chaplain. Because you don't call any chaplain by rank. But the chief of chaplains that I was working under was a little bit different, and I'm not used to things that are this way. So I said no. So I went to Fort Huachuca, Arizona to retire. You can't get to Fort Huachuca now. Because when you make a call on the phone, it's recorded. It used to be Army, it was the Buffalo soldiers were there, the black soldiers. And then it was Army Security Agency. So you don't play games. So then I went to the Navajo Reservation. I was sub-dean of the college, professor of history and religion, and came back, and we were married by then. We got married in 1964. I had our daughter 9 months and 22 days later. And the old ladies, I said, no. I counted the days for him. It was all right. And then we waited 8 years for another child and then my son. And so we have 3 children and 4 grandchildren. And my son's going to get married, I hope soon. His wife going to be a nurse. And so anyway, I've always been a shepherd.
What motivates you to be a priest in Anglican
Well,
Church? Was that sort of kind of impact from the war?
No. When I went to the Philippines, we took a train ride across the United States. You don't want to ride a troop train all the way up to Washington. And the chaplain up there wrote a letter to my mother. That was 1945, before I was on the way to the Philippines. He said, he's going to be in the clergy. That was a Presbyterian at the time. You're kidding. And then at Fort Bragg, when I was confirmed, and he said, you're the lay vicar. And when I was at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, Father Rauscher said, finish your schooling, you can't do it. He said, you're going to go through the church through us. So, you know, sometimes my wife said I'm a slow learner. I'm stubborn sometimes. I dated my wife and 2 others at the same time, but she puts up with me. She's a hospice nurse. It's tough, and so I've been so fortunate. And I could have been rector of a big church. I was nominated on a several bishop here. Forget it. I'm happy. I finally became a rector, which is of a church, but I'm not that humble, because I just remember all the goodness that people have done for me, and just give God something back in my life. It's been a great life.
Have you been back to Korea?
No.
No?
That time, as I say, I could have gone back, but she was pregnant. General Park wanted to have us come back. Everything was paid for to go back. And they've had the other ones, but now I had a triple bypass during 9/11 out to Colorado, but the heart was good for 25 more years. I had this carotid artery cleaned, glued up, and then I had a little heart attack, didn't do much to it. I've been so weak. Left knee, new tendons on the left knee. When I got fused, lost my other.
So you had series of bitter battle with Chinese and North Koreans. Do you have any bitterness with them? What if this War Veteran Digital Memorial website serve as a piece of symbol of reconciliation in the Korean Peninsula, so that your interview will be shared with some of other Chinese and North Korean veterans?
It's funny, when I went in the hospitals last time at St. Joe's, the surgeon was Chinese. He said, "What happened to your right leg, Father Skinner?" I said, "I was in Korea and some Chinese soldier shot me." He did, and it's different. But for a long time, I still don't like things made in China. I like things made in Korea. I mean, I bought this years ago, and I do have an affinity for this. I went to Fort Drum. I go up once in a while, and there was a service, and this sergeant first class who was Korean, she saw the Purple Heart thing, and she said, "Oh." But I know that's the way we do it to each other. But that touches me. You don't, I just went because I'm supposed to go. When you go in the military, that's it. "Oh, my son, da-da-da-da-da." Don't be da-da-da-da stuff. It's tough. But now you can talk back. I never even sent a letter to my mother. I wrote her while I was in a hospital. I sent a letter to her from Osaka. Said I was scratched. 11 months later, she knew I'd lied. It wasn't scratched. A telegram came from halfway across in the Pacific, plus the telegrams from the War Department said I was wounded and I was missing in action. She got all four the same day in Baldwinsville. So I have had no animosity now. I still don't like the way that financial we're doing. We're no longer the nation that I knew. We were going down the hill, unfortunately. I don't like to get in politics, but you have to have somebody who understands this, who our real friends are and our allies. Israel, South Korea, and Japan has become so great. And that's because of Douglas MacArthur. They don't understand about this man, but great.
Now the South Korea, thanks to your sacrifice and so many people's life, become 12th largest economy in the world, and it's a 6th or 7th largest trading partner with the United States, and one of the most substantial and vibrant democracy in Asia.
Wow.
Are you aware of those?
Oh yeah, I read a lot.
So
and
what do you think?
I teach. I think it's wonderful. I have the letter the president of Korea sent me, signed, thanking me, and then I have the other declaration, which came in 25 years, and not many people have that one. I keep it home, and I just found out I can be buried at Arlington since I'm retired, also since I'm decorated. But I found out we have our own cemetery in the church, so I said when I die, or I could be buried at a Skinner plot in Waterloo from the Revolutionary War. or to Wisconsin, where I went to seminary. I saw when I die, reel me across the road and drop me in.
So what is the legacy of Korean War veterans related to this prospering Korea, free and democratic Korea?
Be proud. Be proud of who you are, of where you came from, and where you're going. Don't sit back and take a second seat. Stand up. When we had our convention out in San Diego, this little girl was 7 years old playing a violin. I cried. And we had a tech sergeant. Well, I can't say more about it because he goes back to North Korea once in a while. So anyway, so he sang, and he and the other guy walked up. That's what you do, two men. There's nothing wrong with it. It's okay. And they said, no, we come to you. And I haven't been to the dinners, but one time I went, and I don't like the front seats. It's embarrassing to me. I'll take the bottom seat. I'm not a humble person, but no, let somebody else go up there. If you want me up there, then take me up, but I'm not going to take that seat. And that's the way our soldiers have always been to me. We lost a lot in Korea. At Chipyong-yi, they only had 6,000, including the French battalion, our artillery battalion, a battery 155s, battery back engineers, surrounded by 30 or 40,000 Chinese. They lost 600 out of 6,000. But when they got through, they counted 10,000 Chinese bodies. Because quad 50s and twin 40s are nasty, or so basic. Artillery drops it, you lose more. Artillery kills more than anybody else. And they weren't, that's the first time that the Chinese left and went north. When Ridgway came in and said, we don't go back, we're going ahead. And his books tell it what the orders were. And this book shows about the French, and so there's been a solidification. And all the Koreans I've met have been very proud of themselves. But some of the students don't understand it over there. They, oh, shut up. You know what your grandparents went through? I went through a depression here. We ate. The farm, I got half a pig every year. I wanted a tail because I make a whistle. Take the bladder, made a football out of it. We ate. You can eat a lot. You can survive and be thankful for what you have. Don't throw out you got leftovers, eat them up. Don't throw them in the garbage. Americans better wake up.
What would be your sort of message to the future generation? I think you just mentioned a little bit of it, but from the perspective of Korean War veterans, about the war and about the future wars that Americans might engage, as a wrap-up of this interview.
I think first, some of the young men are upset. My grandson, who Norman has met, I'm sorry, wants to go to the Marine Corps. I said, okay, I'll swear you in. I met General Gray, great man, Commandant Corps. And I'm used to people like this. The man across the street, I had to go promote a man up to Fort Drum from second to first lieutenant. And I like to see the command sergeant majors get out here and do these things, but the discipline is not like it was before, tight. And when we get that tight back to the military, we'll be all right. But the State Department should stay away from the military. You can't have, it's all right to have civilians, some of these things, but the actual fighting and training, let the military do it. They're good at it. And they'll train well, don't play games. I was trained if you were not a staff sergeant, you couldn't get married. If you didn't, throw you out. Because you can't have privates up there worrying about children someplace. You know, you're over there and you got to talk on the phone every day. You take them out on a... They did. They take them right out in front and and they get killed. You're out there to, don't play games. It's not nice. And you're not murdering anybody. You're defending something, defending the people who are there. It's the people we worry about. You know, just like in Korea, I wasn't worried so much about the government. I found that they were good. But the people, the innocent ones, because they're all children of God, or they know about it or not, too bad. And so, if I can be a servant of the servants of God, I'm fine. That's all I want to do. I'm weak now from cardiac rehab, and I can't stand a lot of things, but motor mouth's still going.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
Interview.